Dungeon Master Hotline.
Yes, I
got you. I got you. You're dead. Dungeon Master Hotline.
Yes, I do appreciate for the assistance. To simplify the primary issue, for most of my campaigns, they have a lot of issue with, they want good loot, but at the same time, I run it based partially on the charts, but not fully. I'm willing to modify as I need. There are times they don't like it when I have to modify a creature, but if it's a dragon's lair, they expect me, if they're expecting me to put something else in there that doesn't make sense, it's a dragon's lair. It wouldn't make sense otherwise.
Okay, can you be specific?
Okay, so I made it clear in an area that there was possible fire giants. I know for a fact my players are more than well armed enough to deal with it, but they think that I shouldn't send it at them when I know more than well enough they're capable to deal with it. Is one of the issues I've seen. They don't want me to modify creatures, but at the same time, I want to actually be able to challenge them. Because otherwise, one of them is, he's got a main issue with, he min-maxes or sets up his character intentionally to make it overpowered as easily as he can. Now, I'm a person who does run homebrew relatively frequently. I will, if I feel the need, bend the rules. And I do make sure they run all homebrew stuff by me first, so I can try and minimize them making it overpowered at the start. They, for some reason, seem to not understand, or at least one veteran player specifically, doesn't seem to understand that in order to balance it out, if he's going to do a homebrew character in a homebrew world, then yes, there are times I will modify things to the extent needed to actually make it fun for everybody.
Okay. So what is your question? What's your question? I think I understand. What is your question?
How do I balance out, one, the loot that they so much expect, but also, how do I help make it so I don't always have to modify things? Because this is a guy who knows the books. He knows the CR of most monsters, and since this is online, most he doesn't know, he can Google if he needs to. He's a player that, albeit he's lucky, I don't know if he does fudge dice or not, so with that in mind, I have made customizations in case he is or isn't. He does have a frequency for rolling 15 or higher more often.
Okay.
It's designing a balanced encounter is my issue, without making him upset that I have to keep doing this.
There is a lot to unpack there. So I'm going to start. I didn't even get all of those. So let's start with your right to homebrew. You're the DM. The monster stat blocks are suggestions at best. If there's any debate about that, you can direct them to the countless number. Well, I guess it is countable, but there are a number of examples within the modules themselves, the books written by the people in charge, where they will take a monster stat block and make adjustments to it. A really good example, one of my favorite examples of this is in Out of the Abyss, they introduce a CR9 demon at level 1, but they weaken it. They take away a lot of its abilities. They lower their hit points so that the party can actually fight it. That's a really good example. The reverse is also true. There's plenty of examples of increasing the power of a monster so that they're more effective, like they're just stronger. You can do this by adding spells. You can do this by increasing hit points is a pretty common one. The damage dice, anything like that. So that is well within your right. That's not even a discussion. I mean, that's just like, you can just introduce a monster and yeah, you can just introduce. Go ahead.
One better example of what I mean by they'll get upset sometimes is, okay, so Magical Forest, I mentioned that there's not much except for a few magical creatures. I decided for a possible either encounter of either combat or could be talking, I put a kitsune in that just had bad experiences with people. They thought immediately it was a party wipe because it's what, a CR9 and they were like level 3 or 4. Albeit they had equipment for it. It's the kitsune version I used, he knew was I believe it's like CR20 something, had access to high grade spells. And he immediately challenged me on it. Like, you can't do this as a party wipe. When I already mentioned and even confirmed with another DM friend of mine on how exactly to nerf it, so it didn't even have offensive spells, really.
You can't
So
do this. This is a party wipe. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, you finish.
It's also, they like to accuse me of a party wipe thing because, like, I'll send them a fire giant with their level 5 when they've got weapons that they get lucky enough on the loot table that are doing 3 or 4d6. If necessary, I nerf the HP. 3 to 4d6 when there's 3 or 4 of them is pretty easy if I nerf just a little bit of the damage dice.
All right, you have a lot to talk about with your players. Let's start with not every fight has to be overcome. I like there's so much to talk about there. I wish I had a sentence for you to just say. I wish I had a sentence for you that you could give to the players and say, okay, this is how it's going to be. Like the sentence is basically, this is how it's going to be. Like if your players are contesting your every decision, they don't trust you. I like real talk. We're just gonna keep it real. If you don't even feel like you have the right to introduce some monsters because your players are going to challenge it, like this is going to be a party wipe, or that's too strong for us. That is a discussion that you need to have with them. Like if that was happening to me, I would tell the entire table. I would pause the game because they're already taking it out of game anyway. They're like, hey, DM, stop this. That's too strong. So at this point, we're out of game. I would say, listen, all right, y'all are going to have to trust me that I know what I'm doing. If you don't trust me, then somebody else DM. Yeah, like so I guess that's your line. That's your line. Y'all just going to have to trust me. All right. There are plenty and then you just give them you can just hit them with examples you want. You don't owe them an explanation, but if you want to build trust, it's you can give them explanations. So you can say things like, this kitsune is going to run away at half health. So you only got to do half health to it. It's also weakened because X reasons. This fire giant is a younger fire giant and doesn't have the same stat block as the one that's in the monster manual. I mean, at this point, they're metagaming. They're using their own homebrew rules, but they're not allowing you to homebrew things. Like they've completely dominated your game, and they still, even though you allow them to homebrew, and that you're still not allowed to run the game how you want, and you're not allowed, and they don't trust you. So there's a lot to talk about there. So start with that.
They don't challenge everything. It's usually when I bring in a higher level monster, because basically, I will admit this, when I first started, one of the players who, basically, he is more than capable as a DM himself to rules lawyer if he feels the absolute need. To put it simply, I, at the time, did not know how to stop a murder hobo, so to make it clear, I sent a Dracolich when, while I know he couldn't have killed it, effectively, it was me trying to passively be like, dude, stop steamrolling everything. Literally.
You learned a very valuable lesson just then. Obviously you can correct it. You're gonna have to rebuild the trust because you actually set out to so you designed an encounter specifically to shut them down and to put them in their place. I'll word it that way. You designed this encounter, this Dracolich, to put this player in their place, and that, based off of what you just told me, is why you lost their trust. So what you're gonna have to do is say again.
they use it as a meme, effectively. It's like that, as he puts it, there's always that one thing that the DM does that they will forever be remembered for. He doesn't challenge me as much over it, but as a newer DM, he will challenge things that he believes. He trusts me to make most decisions, but there are times where other players who don't know me as well think I'm crazy for doing something, like sending a young dragon. Because I won't always say, oh, it runs away at half health. I won't say that initially, because then you can understand if someone knows how much HP it has roughly. So say they think it has roughly, we'll say roughly 100. They may possibly try and fudge dice to get access to, say, 50 damage, take it out before it can possibly do something. I don't like it when people do that, so I try and remove their opportunity to fudge it or to metagame the creature itself.
This is
It's an interesting prediction.
So all right. So what? Let's. Oof, man, there's like so many bullets. I can't even keep up with this. Fudging dice. What reason do you or why do you suspect that they're fudging dice? Just probability, or have you actually seen them fudge, or is it just
an online campaign? But he did admit that he's a pathological liar, and he has actually. He originally, for the first campaign, he did admit it. He did fudge dice, and that's when I counter fudged, basically, clearly making it. Yeah,
okay.
I know you fudge dice, and I made it clear to him. I will not do that unless I know he's doing it. He uses something known as his Ruby dice, which I have seen him roll them sometimes. They are really lucky. I rarely see him fall anything under a 14, though he does actually sometimes. They do fall short. So I know they're not weighted or anything, they're plastics. So it's just at times on harder encounters, he just seems to get a little more lucky than he should be. And, well, yes, Lady Luck could just be blessing him. It is very possible without cameras. I can't see his dice. I don't necessarily know if he's
okay. All right. Is this online? You can't see their rolls?
Correct. And he doesn't like dice bots because they actually do screw him over.
Okay, okay. Jesus. Oh my God.
That's just the dice bot hates him.
Okay, all right. New rule. So here's the first step. Here's the first step to not only build trust, but to solve your cheating issue. We're gonna knock out 2 birds, 1 stone, really easy. You're gonna use a dice bot, as you call it. You're gonna start rolling dice online where everybody can see it. It's a problem solved. This does 2 things. For one, it builds trust with your players and you. If they can see every die roll you make, they know you're not fudging. If you can say every roll that they make, you know they're not fudging. So boom, done. I like if they say that the bots are screwing them over, like that sucks. Suck it up. I mean that's just the way it's going to be now. No, there's going to be a better way to word that. All right, so let's say, all right, so I tell a player, all right, we're going to be rolling. I mean, if they say that these bots are screwing me over, and you say, well, I as the DM am going to be using these dice bots as well, so it's fair. If they still contest that, like maybe the bots are out to get them, specifically them, like the bot just functions differently when they roll versus everybody else, that we're at another level there. I don't have much advice for that other than therapy, but if you're using a bot, it's fair for everyone. Everybody can see it. Problem solved.
It's just then how do you handle certain hidden rolls? Now, I will say this. I usually roll my damage dice in the bot so people can see that this is not me fudging possible damage dice.
No hidden rolls. No more. We don't do it. There's no trust at this table. I can tell you. I can tell from your description, your players don't let you homebrew things. You believe that they're fudging die rolls. There's no trust at this table, so eliminate the trust. Every die roll has to be seen, at least for the next, at least for the foreseeable future. I mean, I roll that way always. Every die roll I make, like, you saw it. Everybody sees every roll that I make, no matter regardless. So that's the new rule. That's like we're eliminating trust.
Agreeable.
Start there. So that would be a strong one. Homebrew the monsters. They're your monsters. You can change them. I recommend Grim Hollow. If you don't want to create your own monsters, you can crack open Grim Hollow. It's got some really good what's the name of the book? Monstrous Bestiary. Anyway, find some homebrew monsters. Use them.